Hey, welcome to Plant Yourself. I'm your host, Howard Jacobson. Two quick announcements before we get to today's show. If you're interested in becoming a health coach, I'm offering another run due to popular demand for people who can't make 8 p.m. on Wednesday nights, Eastern Time. So we're doing another run of the program, which will meet, the practicums will meet at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays, Eastern Time, U.S., which means if you're in Europe or Africa, that might be good for you. Also, if you're in the U.S. and evenings aren't good and you have free time in the mornings, either 7 a.m. Pacific time or 10 to 11:30 Eastern, then you can participate. If you want to find out more about becoming a wicked effective health coach, you can go to wellstartcoach.com. Second thing is, if you're not aware of it, Josh Lajani and I have a book that is free on Amazon Kindle. It's called Sick to Fit. And if you just go to Amazon and search for Sick to Fit, you'll be able to download it for free and read it on any Kindle-enabled device, even a phone, smartphone, tablet, computer, whatever. All right, let's get to today's episode. This is the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm Howard Jacobson of plantyourself.com and WellStart Health. This podcast is part of my mission to help you live a conscious and connected life. So I'm real excited to report that PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, are coming to my neck of the woods. They're coming to the Triangle of North Carolina, and they're running a kickstart in the Triangle. They've done it in a bunch of cities all across the country, and now they're in mine. And one of the things that's so wonderful and classy about PCRM is they don't just come in with their own experts, although they are bringing some, but they really work on highlighting, featuring, and honoring the work of locals. And so today on this podcast, I'm interviewing 4 of those locals to give you a sense of what a healthy, plant-based community can look like when people start coming together, working together, and connecting over these important issues, values, missions, whatnot. You can hear the sirens in the background. It has been completely silent here today. I'm in Indianapolis right now at the American College of Lifestyle Medicine Conference, which I'll talk about soon on another podcast. I've got a lot of interviews lined up with amazing clinicians, practitioners, entrepreneurs who've all come together to foster lifestyle medicine, but that's a topic for another podcast. That was just a siren reminding me to let you know that I'm here today. Before we get started, I'm just going to give you one announcement. I'm thrilled to let you know that the next WellStart Health Coach Training Certification course begins, we have a date, November 5th. That's Monday, November 5th, and we are now taking applications. So if you're interested, just go to wellstartcoach.com. Read all about it. There's a couple of videos you can watch. You can watch a demo coaching call with me, Kevin, and Josh, and you can decide if you want to sign up for an enrollment interview. And if you like it and we think you'd be a good fit, then we can get you into the program. The deadline for signing up is Thursday, November 1st, so that we have the weekend to prep everything and make sure you hit the ground running on the 5th. So again, wellstartcoach.com if you're interested in becoming a certified WellStart Health Wellness Coach. Also, I should mention that if you're in the Triangle region, or will be here this coming weekend, the weekend of the 26th and 27th of October 2018, you should definitely check out the Kickstart. And you can find out more about that at kickstartyourhealth.org. That'll take you right to the Triangle page for PCRM. And I'll be there all weekend, and I look forward to seeing you there. All right, so let's get right to it and meet our 4 local heroes. So I'll introduce each of my interviewees in turn. And we're going to begin with one of my favorite all-time people, Queenetta Moore. Queenie was a guest on this podcast several years ago, and she's gone on to do a number of more amazing things, which we're about to talk about. So let's kick off this PCRM Triangle Kickstart edition of the Plant Yourself podcast by welcoming our first guest. Queenetta Moore, welcome back to the Plant Yourself podcast.
I'm happy to be back. Thank you, Howie.
Yeah, and here we are talking about an event in our own backyard that you are helping to put together and further the agenda of health and plant-based eating and all that good stuff. Before we get to that, let's just remind folks maybe who didn't hear you on the last time you were on the podcast, like what you do, and what's going on in your life and your work and your advocacy?
Great. So I offer challenges that help people, mainly the people who are not familiar with the plant-based diet, or people who might be very limited in funds. I help them to create a program for themselves that lasts for 21 days that consists of only plant-based foods, and that is comprised of recipes, tips, suggestions, what to expect, what normal detox symptoms to expect. I create a community as far as a Facebook support group for people who have done my challenges before that actually just help motivate the newbies and to give them insight also and say, hey, this is how I did it raising 3 kids on my own, and this is how I did it working full-time and going to school full-time. And so there's all these little helpful tidbits that I myself can't always relate to, but the community that I have is very supportive, and people who are very enthusiastic about the lifestyle change. They're more than willing and very eager to help other people succeed. My challenges have different ethnic undertones to them, so they incorporate Latin foods as well as Afro-Caribbean foods and Southern foods, pretty much most to, and I also have a Clean Start program, which is one of the most easiest to, jump into. But for those who have ethnic preferences as far as how they like their food, then I have plant-based recipes for them.
Gotcha. So at what stage of awareness or commitment do people start, intersect with you? When they get interested or start a 21-day to plant-based journey with you, are they like committed? Are they curious? Are they doubtful?
Yeah, so all of the above, actually. I have people, mainly what I see are people who've been contemplating the diet for some time. Maybe they have watched a documentary, or they've heard someone else, or they've seen someone else who is vegan or plant-based, and they are curious, but maybe that person is not able to offer them the insight that they need. Or maybe they just don't want to confess that. Oftentimes they might not want to confess that one person sparked an interest, in their life when they have been telling them, they were going to eat meat for the rest of their life, So I think I get all levels. I get mostly people who, though, have seen some sort of documentary or have been exposed to a vegan lifestyle in some form or fashion. Most people who follow me or who join the challenge have been exposed in some way. And that sometimes may be because of my online presence myself, but it's also, it's a collection of inspirations, I guess. So different levels of consciousness all together with all of my participants. Some are even already vegan or already plant-based, but they are in need of new recipes because we all kind of sometimes hit that wall and they need to be a little bit more creative. So I also have those too.
Uh-huh. So what are the main things that you help people with in those 21 days that if you weren't there, or the community weren't there, or the recipes or the process wasn't there, that would trip them up?
That's a good question. So I think it varies. It varies based on the individual, but that's why I feel the community, as far as the Facebook support group, is so helpful. When I first went vegan, or plant-based, really, because in the beginning I didn't commit to a vegan lifestyle. But when I first went plant-based, I didn't have resources for anything, really. I was just Googling recipes, and so I was eating the most basic foods. I didn't have as much flavor as I thought, as I would like to have had. So I think I needed so much support when I was going through my journey that I needed a variety of questions answered. I didn't know all of what vegan meant. I didn't know that what a vegan diet entailed or vegan lifestyle entailed. I just wanted to eat plants. So I needed support. I needed questions answered as far as that. And I needed a very friendly environment, a welcoming environment. And sometimes we might experience issues in our communities at times. So I kind of just leave it. It's really based on the individual and what their particular life circumstances or questions might be. But they range. I have people who, I might not be able to help them with their some of their medical concerns or things like that. And of course, I'm not operating as a medical professional, but there are people on the community that have experienced relief from certain illnesses, diabetes, high blood pressure, issues with their thyroids, and eventually coming off of, levothyroxine, Synthroid, and all of those other medications. So people are able to offer much more insight because there's a variety. There's a few thousand people in the group who've completed the challenge. So while I might not have that issue that they might be experiencing, there's people in the group that may. And so we leave it as an open forum to kind of just give insight, and support.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So when you're listing the different types of foods, the different ethnic flavors, so there was soul, there was Southern, is it Afro-Caribbean? What else?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and Latin.
And Latin. So,
yeah. So there's different remakes of those foods. That's all.
So you're working largely with communities of color.
Yes, absolutely. So I found that was my presence more so in, based on my Instagram followers, it kind of just seems that it was just more ethnic people that followed me, and they needed something that was, applicable or could be attuned to their traditional way of eating. I think I mentioned this on my last interview with you, but a lot of times we have, especially in the Black community, I can speak for that community because I'm a part of it, but we always think whenever we see a large population of white people doing a diet, or European, whatever you want to call it, they're doing a certain diet, we automatically will always defer to that as a very bland or tasteless food. It's kind of like it's our misconception, or maybe people have just experienced that in comparison to what they're used to eating. But it just simply is what it is. So I was one of those people also, and I felt that going plant-based, I was going to lose the flavor and the seasonings and all of that variety that I was used to having, or which I didn't. I thought it was variety at the time. It turns out that it wasn't. But all of the foods that I was used to eating, and my mother's from North Carolina, so I ate a very Southern diet, even living up north. But I ate, flavorful foods, and I thought I was going to lose that whenever I went plant-based. And so when I actually found out that, hey, you can not sacrifice flavor and have a plant-based diet, I felt like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know this, because I think that's the main hindrance for most people of color, because we like seasoned food.
So I wanted to come back to that because I calculated that you were on this podcast over 3 years ago. And it feels like, from just being an observer, that the Black vegan or Black plant-based community has grown tremendously. Tell me from your perspective, like, what has happened in 3 years?
I think obviously documentaries are playing a large part, but in the Black community specifically, I feel that because we are amongst, a large part of our population are suffering from dietary related illnesses. And I think we just needed, what it appears to be is, we just needed the information. We just needed the ability to make this diet a part of our lifestyle without sacrificing, flavor and things of that nature. So I feel what's particular to the Black vegan community is that they have found a way to do exactly what I had sought out to do 3 years ago, which was create recipes that mimicked or at least incorporated a lot of the ingredients that we were used to using or used to seeing and making it something that we could do on a day-to-day basis. So I think prior to 3 years ago, I feel like a lot of us felt it was unattainable and it was something that we could not do. And then I think with the help of social media, which, it's a love and hate thing with social media, but in this instance, I feel, people take pictures of their food, they're posting recipes of their food, and they're creating their businesses. People who've been vegan for some time, they're creating businesses to help other people. So I just feel that the community has banded together in such an amazing way, but it's helped with showcasing that people are living this lifestyle and they're not frail and they're not skinny and they're not malnutrition, and they're active, and they're bodybuilders, or they're fit, they're toned, and or curvy, in my case, curvy, and still leading a lifestyle that is cleaner than what they're used to, but still delectable and still very nutritious, obviously. So I think the fear, to maybe answer your question, I think the fear and the awareness was that, I think those played a large part. And I think the help of social media has helped, or the presence of social media has helped the community kind of band together and push us towards a healthier diet. But yeah, Black vegans, I'm seeing them so many. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of it. It motivates me. And then plus, I have more places to eat when I go places. Yeah. I'm excited,
All right. I mean, just from just being an observer of popular culture, it seems like there's an explosion of Black athletes, a whole bunch of the Tennessee Titans, and, celebrities, some of my favorite Instagram accounts, like Badass Vegan.
Yeah. He's inspiring a lot of people. Yeah.
To see a large, interconnected, growing community, like popcorn, like people popping up all over the place, chefs and restaurateurs and entrepreneurs and athletes and spokespeople. It feels like it's almost could go, it's like Black mainstream at some point.
Yeah. I definitely feel like that, because even if people are not committing to a completely plant-based or vegan lifestyle, I definitely see more people incorporating more plant-based or vegan meals in their diet. And of course, I get people who approach me for coaching and so on and so forth, but they are saying, I'm not sure that I can be vegan just yet, but I'm really interested in trying some of these recipes. But not only that, how can you help me to maintain this? How can I eat more plant-based foods throughout the week and limit my meat consumption? So, I mean, either way, it's just been a positive shift towards a plant-based lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle in general. But I see more people, actually, what the best thing is, I think I see, is that I actually see people sticking to it. It's not just, like we've had all of the high fat diets. We all can list those. And, they come and they fade, and they come and they peak and they fade, they peak and they fade. This I can just see people staying with. And like I said, even if they're not completely vegan, I still see their meals, and they're still, for the most part, 90%, 80% plant-based. So I just think of the positive impact that's having on their children, because I'm still very passionate about the children being raised in a household and you don't know how to cook, or you can't cook, or you don't provide grocery. It's nice to see these people introducing more fruits and vegetables into their household and exposing their children to a wider variety of foods, and not only foods, but just healthier, more nutritious foods. So, and the kids like it. I've done some events where we're spiralizing zucchini and, making spaghetti, and they, when I first did it, they weren't sure what the difference was from a zucchini and a cucumber, but then seeing their faces when they tasted it, and it was like, hey, this is good. I like this. Can I get some more, Miss Queenie? Yeah, so it's been nice to see. And then I had parents at, these events come up to me afterwards and ask me, hey, can you share that recipe? I'd really like to incorporate that, one of our kids is gluten-free, or one of our kids is, sensitive to dairy, or whatever the case may be. And even in the adults, I would just like it because it didn't taste like it sacrificed any flavor, or, those kinds of things. So it's just been nice to see the shift, across the board. And I'm just really happy that the kids are able to benefit from it.
Right. So tell me, what are you going to be doing for the PCRM event, the Kickstart Triangle Health Fest? What, if people come out, when will they get to see you, and what will you be sharing?
Well, I will be there along with my cousin Nick, who's been a vegan for, I think, maybe the last 12 years, was vegetarian, I think, 10 years before then. He has been head chef at one of the very popular vegetarian cafes in the area, and now he's working with me for 21 to Go, which is our meal prep service. So we'll have samplings there for people to taste if they are interested in signing up. But not only that, but just to expose, more of the community to what others in the community are doing. And I'm very happy to be sharing that. I may have some juices on hand for people to sample, and then, things of that nature, food-based though. I hope to be sharing, my story and how I became vegan, or what prompted me. So that I'm hoping to also be sharing as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And I hope everybody who's listening, who's within driving distance of Durham, Cary, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, will come on out and meet the community and lend your support.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see everyone. And please, if you notice me, make sure that you come up and say hi. I love to meet everyone who's listening or following in some sort of fashion. So,
right. And according to the flyer, you'll be the one holding a pineapple.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's me, the pineapple girl.
Right. So hug gently.
Okay, I will do that.
All right, Queen Etta Moore, thanks as always for all the work you're doing. Can't wait to see you, and thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you, Howie. I appreciate you. Take care.
Bye-bye. My next guest is Neal Barnard, and if you are a Triangle local and you have anything to do with the plant-based vegan vegetarian movement, then you know Neal. He has been involved, 20, 30 years now in the Triangle Vegetarian Society. He is one of the movers and shakers behind what is the largest vegetarian Thanksgiving dinner in the country, probably in the world. And he is just so knowledgeable, so passionate, and so committed and involved in so many different areas. So let's get right to it. Neal Barnard, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thanks, Howard.
Yeah, so we're talking about the PCRM Kickstart that's coming to Durham. I think it might be the 5th or 6th city, or Durham, the whole triangle will be all over the place at the end of October. And you're one of the marquee presenters. So I wanted to talk to you today about what you do in the community and a little bit to entice people to show up for the event itself. So let's start with you and what you're up to.
Sure. Well, I've been involved in the community for, it feels like forever, but it's been since the mid-90s, I guess. So there's a variety of things I do. I lead the Triangle Vegetarian Society. We have potlucks, special guests, speakers. The thing we're best known for is our Thanksgiving. We host, I call it the country's biggest vegetarian Thanksgiving. It's, of course, entirely vegan, but I do call it the biggest vegetarian Thanksgiving. And we surpassed the biggest one before us used to be Chicago some years ago. So we now at one extended seating have about 650 people. And all told, with pre-Thanksgivings, we often seat around 1,000 people.
Wow.
So
do you have a sense of how many of those people are vegetarian, vegan, and how many are curious?
Thanks for asking, Howard. Yes, I do. And I can also tell a quick story. So I always take a rough poll, and it may surprise you. Let me ask you, what's your guess? How many people who come do you think are vegetarian, vegan or vegetarian?
Oh,
What percent?
I would guess a third to half would be
Yeah, so
already
it's
eating
about
that
half.
way.
Yeah, about half or a little less than half are vegetarian or vegan. So, about 50-50. And that's just based on, every year I ask, and it's very unscientific because some people have left by then and some people may not hear the question, but very roughly half. People come because the food is great. The food is very tasty, and the story I was going to tell is that some years ago at Thanksgiving, everybody's so happy, but one year at Thanksgiving, there was a family, happy people, except the parents. There were some older parents. They were from out of town, from Florida, and they weren't so happy. And I said, well, glad you're here. Are there any issues? And they said they were used to having dead animals for Thanksgiving, and they're not used to that. So I said, well, I think you'll like the meal. I'll check back with you. And I came back half an hour later when they were sitting, and they had broad smiles. They loved it. They said, this is actually our best Thanksgiving ever. So if certainly you can make terrible vegan food if you don't know what you're doing. Certainly you can make terrible any kind of food, but if you know a little bit, vegan food, I would argue, probably is the tastiest. And certainly there's so many choices in the plant kingdom to make wonderful food.
Yep.
So that's one thing I do. I work with the Vegetarian Society. My connection with PCRM is I'm really privileged to be a Food for Life instructor. I'll tell you what that is. So you have to apply, and my wife suggested I apply. So you have to apply. You have to show you know how to teach cooking. I've been teaching cooking for many years. Submit some videos. I had my international cooking demonstrations videotaped. I submitted that. You have to have a background check, and you have to be a vegan. And so they picked me, which was great. And so we're trained. We have monthly conference calls. We have a big conference once a year. We go through an intensive training initially. And so what that enables me to do is to teach the Food for Life curricula. We have various curricula. We have a diabetes class, a cancer class. We have a general health and weight management class. We have a class for kids. And we have others. We have a low-income class. We have a class for people who speak Spanish primarily. So Neal Barnard, who leads PCRM Physicians Committee, he's recorded nutrition lectures. So we show a nutrition lecture, we discuss it, I give a quiz, and then I prepare 2 or 3 items, 3 or 4 items, I should say, that people get to try, all plant-based, whole food, and they go home with recipes and lots of handouts, and we have a lot of discussion. So that's my most immediate connection to PCRM. It is something I love doing. I see the impact it makes. I get lots of great comments from people who maybe they all don't become vegan, but some of them do, and some of them, we're really not focused on veganism per se, Howard, but we're focused on limited fat, whole food, plant-based eating. So we don't really advocate French fries and potato chips, right?
Right.
So we're really looking at healthful eating patterns. So it's it's a subset of veganism.
And why is that important? Because I know you. I've known you for a long time. I know you are a committed, ethical vegan, and I said there's sort of a rift, or maybe a couple of camps in especially among ethical vegans who sort of embrace the vegan mac and cheese and vegan potato chips and vegan this and that as a means to get people on board, and thinking that, well, if people are eating healthy, then they're not going to be attracted to it. And we'd rather have a lot of junk food vegans than, people eating 95% plant-based. But you've managed to embrace and advocate both. What's your thinking?
Well, one reason you do what you do with these wonderful podcasts is you ask awesome questions, Howard. and that question really could fill a podcast. We could spend half hour, 45 minutes just talking about that. And I won't do that now, but if you'd like, we could do that some other time. I think that there's many perspectives, and I think that if you want to reduce animal suffering, I can definitely understand to tell people, come on in, the water's warm, and you can eat whatever you want that you're used to. You're used to burgers? We have plenty of burgers. You're used to chips? many potato chips, maybe most are vegan. You want French fries? Come get them. Just don't cook in lard or don't use different animal products. So there is that approach that is as easy as possible. We take a slightly different thing. Come in, the water's warm, it's great, but we want you to tweak things a little bit. And the reason we do that is if I'm out promoting veganism, reducing killing of animals, and I'm not particularly healthy, then I could imagine some people in the audience saying, some of his arguments make some sense, but do I really want to follow that diet when kind of look at him? So I think it's important to project a sense of healthfulness, of energy, and also to have it centered around food, good food. I would argue that the kinds of food we prepare in our Food for Life classes is very well received. And the other metric we have with the food isn't just that it's tasty and nutritious, but that it's easy. And so we hit all of those things in the Food for Life curricula. And I think that's the slight difference we have. In terms of junk food, it's occasionally I'll eat junk food. If I'm at a party and there's some potato chips, maybe I'll have a few. We don't buy it. I don't buy potato chips. And Howard, what I tell my students is we encourage them to move towards a whole food plant-based diet, a vegan diet with no animal products. And we aim for a 10% fat calories. But if you occasionally go beyond the 10%, you go out for vegan ice cream, you have a handful of potato chips, you eat popcorn that has a vegan margarine on it, that's okay as long as your overall average comes to 10%. So we ask people to watch their fat, but they don't have to be every single meal. Getting back to my Thanksgiving is a time to indulge, and many people do. We have at Thanksgiving more and more dishes that are labeled no added fat. So my students or others who are interested can come to Thanksgiving and have a no added fat meal. I don't. When I eat at Thanksgiving, I indulge in pretty much anything, because there's also the beauty of going to a place and saying, I can eat anything I want here. So I do think there's a place for different kinds of food, and I think that in the classroom environment, when I'm teaching people, when I'm modeling my behavior to others, I do want to show the benefits, and there are many, many benefits, as you well know, and many of your listeners will know, to a whole food plant-based diet where we're watching the fats. It's many of your listeners will be familiar with Michael Greger as a quick evidence point. His website, nutritionfacts.org, shows over and over that many of the maladies that we face in our society, especially in modern Western society, can be largely allayed by moving towards a plant-based diet.
Right. So your view is that actually we want to make it as appealing as possible, and you're focusing on like who the people are who are sharing the diet and the lifestyle, as opposed to just focusing on this is the food. Yes.
You need to meet people where they're at. And I can illustrate that with a quick story. So one of my students, actually it was a couple, they strongly embraced this approach of whole food plant-based with limited fat. And they asked me, they said, we have some friends coming to town and we love the approach. We feel so much better. But what do you think, Dilip? The first time they eat at our house, they were spending the weekend, if we prepare a vegan meal, but if we use a little bit of oil. And I thought about it. I said, that makes good sense, because there is a jump from eating food with added fats to no added fat. There is a mouthfeel, and it takes a little while to get used to. And I thought that was a really good approach, because they could win them over with, look how easy it is to be vegan. And then later in the weekend, they were planning on preparing some more healthful meals. And I don't think I run into them occasionally. I should ask them. But I know them well enough that if there were problems, they would have said something. But I should directly ask them about that. But I bet you they had a great time with their visitors. So I think it's important to meet people where they're at. And if somebody comes to my home and they're a heavy meat eater, I won't meet them that far. I'm not going to serve them meat. I don't have any meat in my house. I don't know how to prepare it. I wouldn't want to. I'm an ethical vegan. But maybe if I know they're strong, heavy meat eaters, then maybe I'll have some transition foods as well as my other dishes. For example, some vegan sausages or a variety of vegan cheeses, because there is a place for some with transition foods, and those foods that I might serve on the side would certainly be more healthful foods than the animal-based ones.
Right. Makes perfect sense. So aside from PCRM and the Vegetarian Society, what else do you do around the Triangle?
I do quite a bit in the plant-based world. So one thing that I'm really excited about that I've been involved with for a few years now is I'm very involved with the schools. So I've created something called a Healthy Snack Program, and I arrange for classroom teachers. Currently I'm working K through 5. So I work with classroom teachers, and I get them cookware, and I get them ingredients, and I even arrange for them to get some money just to, because they're spending time on this. And they commit to 2 or 3 times a week preparing a nice vegan snack. And I make it very, very easy for them. They can prepare things like various versions of oatmeal, lentils and rice, beans, vegan yogurt served with organic strawberries, for example. So the schools I teach at, the kids, with very few exceptions, love the program. You might think of a kindergartner or first grader saying, yogurt, that sounds terrible. And of course, vegan yogurt, plant-based yogurt, has many health benefits, including the bacteria in it, and the healthy bacteria in it, and the soy in it, and you can make yogurt with rice and other products as well. So you have these kids who come up to me and say, Chef Dillip, we love the yogurt, or we love the oatmeal. Oatmeal is another good example. You don't hear many kids raving about oatmeal, but the way I show the teachers to prepare the oatmeal, we don't add any sweetener, except for apple. And so we cook the apple into the oatmeal, and the children don't even ask for maple syrup. They have that option, but it's sweet enough. So I think I'm really helping there because a lot of children are not coming to school prepared to learn. Many of them are coming without breakfast. Many of them are bringing heavily sugared junk food sugared or not, to school, maybe as an afternoon snack. And that all the kids I work with know that what's the problem with eating sugar? We get kind of hyper. And so one way not to be so hyper is to have make sure you have a high fiber diet, make sure you're getting all these snacks, which they are through this program, so that can you have some sweets? Sure. When you have that apple in the oatmeal with the fiber, it's slowly metabolized, so you get the energy, but you don't get the drop off from eating sugar directly. So that's something else that I do, and I love doing this.
Do you get any pushback from parents, or
I'm so glad you asked that. I don't, and the reason I don't is that I make it very clear when teachers work with me. Currently, I'm working with 1 kindergarten class, 2 first grade classes, 2 or 3 third grade classes, and 2 fourth grade classes. And I give the teachers lots of material to share with their families if they want to. And when we get started, one thing that I say that we send home to the parents is that, especially at that age, Howard, when I work with adults, I take a different approach. But with children, I take the clear approach that I know something about nutrition and I'm happy to share it with you, but the only people who know what's best for you to eat, looking at the children, are your parents or your caregivers. And I say that, I send that in an email home to the parents, and then I say it in classes often. So I don't want to be in a position where, I'm talking about all the benefits of plant-based diet, to have a kindergartner say, but Daddy wants me to eat chicken. What am I supposed to say? Don't eat the chicken? No. What I say is, the evidence that I can share with your family, if they're interested, I can send it to them, is that if they don't eat the chicken, they probably will have better health. But I don't know your situation, and you need to trust your family. And I think because of that, Howard, because I'm softer with my message with children, I don't get pushback. The parents seem to really enjoy what their children are learning. I send them home with lots of material too. And by the way, with some of the classes who also do the Food for Life Kids class with me, I take them to a wonderful banquet at the same place we have Thanksgiving. So they come with their families, the teachers, everybody's dressed up, it's festive. I do a slideshow about plant-based diets, and I have gifts for everybody, things like the Forks Over Knives DVD, various books, a book about vegan cooking for children with their families, lots of information sheets. So, and believe it or not only do I not get pushback, but a number of families have told me that because of the program, the whole family has actually gone vegan.
You're one of a small group of people who've been invited to kind of be on the marquee to help PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, put together this event in the Triangle. It'll be like a day and a half event, I guess, and there's things at a school. There's things all over the place. What would you say to people who are curious about it? What will you be doing, and what will be going on that will make people want to attend?
So I would say, come on down. There's lots of great reasons to come. It's all of the component events of the Kickstart Triangle Health Fest are free. If for no other reason, come on down to see Neal Barnard. Some of your listeners will probably know Neal. He established the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and among its missions are getting the word out, showing people how to eat well based on evidence, based on strong evidence. And so Neal is this tireless man who's done a lot of great research studies. He's an MD. So he will be here. And the first part of the program is actually on Friday evening, late afternoon and evening, at the Varsity Theater in Chapel Hill. We're going to be showing two films. We're going to be showing Forks Over Knives, which if people are new to the space of what to learn about plant-based diet and they wanted to see a movie, this would be the single movie I would recommend if they only had time to watch one. It's a great movie that talks about how a lot of the health problems we face in this country could be alleviated through moving towards a plant-based diet. I like it. It's a rigorous film. It has a very nice website, books, so you can look up references and see what's going on. So that's very good. That's at 4:30. The second film, I don't know if you've seen this, Howard. I've never seen What the Health, but it's gotten rave reviews. The interesting thing about What the Health is, in my own work, and I believe in your work, I really rely on strong evidence for the material that I'm sharing. I don't say things that I can't back up with footnotes and references. And I've heard a little bit of pushback to What the Health. Some people have claimed, again, I haven't seen the film, that overall it's a good film, but there are some claims perhaps that weren't substantiated. And we discussed this amongst the group that we're putting this festival together, and we decided that it's still important to go forward with it, controversy or not, because then we could discuss it. Neal will be there to discuss it. So my understanding of What the Health, and please chime in because I bet you've seen it, is that it probably presents good information and its thrust is correct, but there may be a few points some might quibble with that. There's not really proof.
Yeah,
again, I haven't seen the film.
I haven't seen it, and I've heard the same thing, and I've seen clips that I think I'm a little uncomfortable with in terms of, it's almost like holding things to a higher standard. That if someone, because we're all, even though we're right, we also are human beings, and we are liable to suffer from various biases, including confirmation bias, attribution bias, and it's easy for us to demonize. And so whenever I see a study that, like I saw one the other day across my LinkedIn feed, it says, well, that dairy helps people overcome certain symptoms of chemotherapy. Like, well, I really want to know if that's true. Because I feel my first impulse is, well, let's look and see, how bad this study was. So I'm immediately going to look for all the things I know I can criticize. And I kind of want to be above that because I want to be so impeccable in my word that when I say something that there's gravitas to it, as opposed to a doctrinaire approach. Because I think there is a space for people to be vegan, even if it's not the healthiest diet in the world, right? I think that exists. So it's not necessary, or even for if it's the healthiest diet in the world for individuals, but not for the planet. Like I just want to be real clear that we are presenting data with humility and an open mind, and we're not threatened by anyone's presentation of fact. So I think it's great that you're showing the film and you're acknowledging, like, let's talk about it and let's see where these humans might have gotten it wrong too.
And so it's supposed to be an entertaining film and easy to digest. We were hoping to show we had a couple other films we were hoping to show and it didn't work out for a variety of reasons. But the good news is there's so many good films in the space. I'm actually involved with one film coming out early next year called Code Blue, which is aimed towards medical practitioners and encouraging them to really learn more about diet. So the festival will begin with those two films on Friday in Chapel Hill. And again, all the events are free, and there is even free popcorn. And one can stick around for the Q&A with Dr. Neal Barnard. So that's part of it. But the main part of the event is really on Saturday, October 27th. And this is going to be held in Cary at a high school, Panther Creek High School. And it goes, I believe, from noon till 4:30 or 5, something like that. I think it's noon to 5. There'll be, one can come, everything's free. There's going to be some sampling of food. There'll be an exercise class. I think Queenie's doing that. I think you'll probably be interviewing Queenie more, so she's probably doing the exercise class. There'll be a number of speakers there. There'll be a panel discussion. My group, the Vegetarian Society, has an extensive table with, I don't know if you've ever seen our table, Howard, but we have lots of material. My good friend Brian Donlin maintains that, so we'll have literature that people can take for free. And there'll be some, as I said, some panel discussions. So there'll be a lot going on then, and people can feel free to come and go as they wish. Stay for the whole event, come for part of it. I think they'll get something out of it for however long they can afford to come and join us. And again, it's all free.
Great. So that's at Panther Creek on Saturday, and that's the day when Neal Barnard will be there.
He'll be there both days.
Okay.
He'll be there both days.
Okay. I mean, he's a big deal. He's
a big deal.
You know, I mean, I interviewed him, and we did it via Skype, so I could see him. And he's like, well, you know, I started PCRM in 1985, and I'm like, were you 9? Like he
looks so young.
He looks so young. It's like was Doogie Howser based on you, Neal? But he certainly, you know, lives as an example of what he's preaching. There is integrity there that's unimpeachable.
Neal is awesome. I don't know if you know about this, Howard. I go every year. He puts on an amazing conference. It's called Nutrition and Medicine Conference. Because, as I'm sure you know, medical doctors generally know very little about nutrition. It's not their fault, but it's the case that medical schools don't require it. I think the average doctor comes out of their 6 to 10 years of training with an average of something like 3-4 hours of sitting, you know, talking about nutrition. So it's very, very little. And so that's one thing that Neal's been really trying to change. And this conference is great because it's all strictly evidence-based, and he has people from many countries who come and present their information. They're not all necessarily vegans, and their results are very strongly supportive of plant-based diet. But, you know, all the data points, there are some data points that leave a little bit of room for some other options too. So I think it's an open and scientifically rigorous conference that I'd like to see. It's this past year it was packed. It was full. They sold out well before the conference started, which means we can't remember what the number was, but it's on the order of 1,000 or something like that. So I'd like to see us grow. This year we allowed for some people to actually participate through a computer, to listen to some of the speakers through their computers. So we had even more people participating. So yeah, Neal is awesome.
Great. So don't miss the chance to come out, because he's a busy guy. I've seen him at many conferences, and he'll show up for his speech and then he'll fly off. You know, he flew away from the cruise. I think he may have scuba dived off, or a helicopter picked him up or something. But he was on the cruise one minute, then he was gone the next. So it's a rare chance to spend some time and hang out with him.
We've gone on the vegan cruise a few times. It's called Holistic Holiday at Sea, and so he always is a speaker, but he's there just for the first 2-3 days, and then he disembarks and flies back. He's very, very busy. And I don't want to diminish, we haven't even mentioned the other folks. Everybody else is very well worth listening to too as well. Jonathan Sheeline is one of the growing numbers of plant-based physicians who are using diet to promote well-being. So just coming to see Jonathan would be well worth it. Queenie has been a long time health coach, and she's very active. She teaches, active lifestyle, because that's also an important part of good health. Parul has been for a long time. Parul Karod will be there. She's a registered dietitian. She works as a licensed nutritionist at a hospital in Cary. She writes for a magazine. She's great. And coming just to see Peru will be well worth it as well. Nadine Blake, I work with her at one of the schools, so she is the nutrition director, and at this particular school, we won the PCRM Golden Carrot Award for healthy school lunches. So she'd be a good person to spend time with as well.
Right.
So I encourage people to come for any of those folks, including, of course, Neal. Neal's a superstar, but I think the other folks are also stars.
Right. And I'll also be there live podcasting. So
Great.
Whatever that means. I don't really know what that means because I've never done it, but I'll be doing it then. I'll be doing it then. So
good.
I guess
you'll be there during the Q&A for the films, or just during the Saturday event?
I think the Saturday event.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll let people alone while they're watching the movies. But, on
the
Saturday,
Q&A would probably be interesting though to capture.
Yeah, well, they'd have to let me on stage, so I haven't negotiated that level of access yet. But,
if you're interested, I can help.
Okay, well, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure there's plenty going on without me.
Yeah.
But, all right, Dilip. Well, thank you for sharing all this stuff, and for all you do, and for taking the time to explain it today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, talk to you later. Next in the lineup is Dr. Jonathan Sheline. He's one of the top plant-based clinicians, practitioners, physicians in the Triangle region. He has a practice with a wonderful name, Physician Assisted Wellness. And since seeing Forks Over Knives, reversing a lot of his own chronic diseases, and committing to lifestyle medicine, he has become an important voice for not just the ethics of the plant-based movement, but also the science behind it. And I've seen him so many times around the area giving talks, sharing slides, sharing the data, sharing his own clinical experience, and really such an important voice to bring into the mix. And this is, Durham is the city of medicine, so proclaimed. And so everybody here is a doctor, a PhD, a pathologist, a clinician, a researcher. And so people need hard facts, and Jonathan's one of the best people to give it to them. So let's get right into it. Hey, Jonathan. Thanks for taking the time to talk about the PCRM Durham event. First, let's let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Well, hi, Howie. Yeah, I'm Dr. Jonathan Sheline, and I'm a family doctor, and I retired from my fairly standard family medicine practice at the end of 2016 to open a solo practice in lifestyle medicine that focuses mainly on plant-based nutrition. And so I see patients on Thursdays in Durham.
Great. So I remember when we first moved here in 2005, by accident, because we didn't know anybody, and we just sort of picked your name, your practice out of a hat. You were our kid's pediatrician. You weren't plant-based. I was sort of plant-based, but not as much as I am now. What led you to completely revamp the way you do medicine, and explore new practice models and new modalities of treatment?
Well, that's a great question and very exciting, actually. I remember it was about 5 years ago. Let's see, 2000. Yeah, that's about right. 2013. I had three different things happen. Two of them were my patients. Two different patients loaned me books on plant-based nutrition. One was on, the China study by Colin Campbell. Another was Eat to Live by Joel Furman. And this was within about a week of each other. And then shortly after that, one of my medical colleagues sent me a video, or a link to a video by Dr. Greger of nutritionfacts.org about, this was one of his year in review summaries about the leading causes of death. And I was just flabbergasted to hear all of his very good evidence backed up by references that most of the leading causes of death in the United States, nearly all of them, would be greatly reduced by switching to a plant-based diet. I'm trained as an epidemiologist, and I actually went and read some of the papers that he referenced, and decided, wow, this, yeah, I couldn't believe I had never heard of it. That's a whole another topic about how little doctors know about nutrition. After reading about it, I just decided, okay, I'm going to make this change myself, because I had some of my own medical issues, high cholesterol, I had a kidney stone, and I was having acid reflux, and all of those things went away, or got better, I should say, with my switch to a plant-based diet. And I started going to conferences, went to several conferences on plant-based nutrition, and finally I just decided, wow, I'm very much an idealistic person and doctor, and I just decided, you know what, I'm tired of doing medicine the old-fashioned way, where I feel like I'm putting Band-Aids on people and treating them with medications that largely treats their symptoms instead of the causes of their illness. So I just decided I wanted to do medicine the way I had sort of always dreamed, where I could actually tell patients, you know what, I can pretty much guarantee you that you'll get better without medication and feel better.
And so since you shifted your practice, I'm sure like everyone has left their old medical model and come to you as a doctor, right? Like as soon as we do this, because it's so effective, the market completely shifts, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wish. It's this real disconnect, because when I go to some of these conferences and I get so enthusiastic, and I'm among the choir, so to speak. I mean, I'm among all the converts to this, and then I come back home and I realize, my gosh, none of my doctor friends even have heard about this, and I'm not burning. I'm not setting the world on fire, should we say, with the number of patients who come to my practice, even though I have great success with those who do. So we got a long ways to go.
Right. Which brings me to the event that you are helping to lead as a local leader. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM, is doing a big day in Durham in October. I think it's the weekend of the 25th, 26th, 27th-ish.
Yeah.
So can you talk? Yeah, talk about what it is and what you'll be doing.
Well, I'm really excited. Dr. Neal Barnard, who is the president of PCRM, is coming down to the Triangle area to promote plant-based nutrition and to promote practices like mine, so we can spread the word a little bit more effectively. He is quite well known. He's published a number of books. Probably the most well known is Dr. Neal Barnard's Program for Reducing Diabetes. He's done a lot of original research on diabetes, but he's coming down and he's giving grand rounds at Duke Regional Hospital on Thursday noon. Then he's going to meet with medical students both at UNC and Duke on Thursday and Friday. I think Friday at Duke and Thursday at UNC. Then Friday afternoon, we have a couple of movie screenings at the Varsity Theater in Chapel Hill. One's Forks Over Knives. The other one is The Game Changers, and that's from 4:30 to 9 on Friday. And then Saturday, there's going to be a big program at I think Panther Creek High School over in Wake County, where we do a Kickstart Triangle Health Fest, and that's going to be from noon to 5, and I'll be on a panel with the other leaders that you mentioned of this local effort, and talking about what we do, what's going on here in the Triangle in this arena, and yeah.
All right. Now, I know that you mentioned you're an epidemiologist. I know you're also a public health person. And the way I discovered that you were plant-based was I got invited to a talk you gave, I think it was at the Scrap Exchange. And
right.
you, and all the talks that I've heard of yours, you talk about not just individual health, but environmental health as well, which is, sort of like a public health type issue. And I know that PCRM is also extremely vocal in looking at all of the implications and consequences of the way we eat and the food we choose to eat, not just what this bite does to my biochemistry. How do you integrate all of that, all of the concerns around eating plant-based as opposed to a standard American diet into your practice and into your life and into your philosophy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am passionate about the environment, about the issue of global climate change. That goes back even before I started into medicine, really, my interest in environment, for example. And so, yeah, in terms of my own practice, it doesn't enter so heavily. I mentioned the fact that switching to a plant-based diet reduces one's carbon footprint by essentially 50%. So it's the single most effective thing you can do in this lifetime to combat global warming. In terms of my own life, I do a lot of volunteering, especially through my church, the Unitarian Church in Durham. I'm a member of a group called Earth Justice, and we have a film series where we show environmental films essentially once a month. I put on once a year a sort of plant-based eating week at ERUP, the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, that you've given talks at as well, and I don't know. I'm a member of several other organizations around. There was one called Transition Durham that I was involved with for quite a long time, and the Sierra Club, and so this is a personal interest of mine, and it just feels so good to me that so many parts mesh together in a coherent way. In other words, switching to a plant-based diet can cure so many different illnesses, especially in Western medicine. Also, it will do more than anything else you can do to solve global climate change. And then the third area, which I know PCRM is heavily involved with, I haven't gotten so personally involved with, but I believe in, is the whole animal welfare aspect. I used to feel like, well, you got to kill a plant to eat it, you got to kill an animal to eat it. So I wasn't, it wasn't high on my list until I saw several films showing the conditions of modern factory farming. The chickens and pigs and cows are treated so abominably in our. It makes me ashamed to be a human being when I see these films and how we treat these living creatures. Spend their whole life in a little cage, scarcely bigger than their own body, and are only kept alive by massive doses of antibiotics and hormones and other chemicals. And these animals are stressed out, and you can just imagine that eating an animal that's totally stressed out its whole life can't be very good for one's own health either. So yeah, so it feels good to me that working on getting people on a plant-based diet addresses their health issues. It addresses world environmental issues, and it addresses animal welfare issues. So, yeah, it feels good.
Great. So for folks who are in the Triangle who are not vegetarian, vegan, plant-based, particularly knowledgeable about this, what would you say to them to convince them to come out and watch a couple of the videos or come to the Saturday Health Fest? What's in it for them?
Well, not to be overly dramatic, but basically I think this can save your life. It can save the life of a relative. And we're talking about extremely common illnesses, heart attacks, strokes, cancer, diabetes, obesity, which shortens one's life. These are very, very common issues, and everyone, I think just about everyone knows someone who has died of a heart attack or has had a heart attack or a stroke. Cardiovascular disease is still the leading cause of death in America. So, I think it behooves people to come out and listen to an approach that could wipe out the number one leading cause of death. There's some of the Caldwell Esselstyn, who's a doctor out at the Cleveland Clinic, has a saying that I like to quote, which is that coronary artery disease, the leading killer of Americans, is a food-based illness, and need never exist. That's a pretty strong statement, and I think though you can back it up pretty well with published data. I was going to say one more thing. You didn't really ask me, but there's a great video that Dr. Michael Greger does comparing the situation of smoking in the early 1960s with diet in this decade, where he points out that in the early 60s, most doctors were smoking. And even though by then there were lots of studies out showing that smoking was not good for you, most doctors somehow weren't aware of it. And if they were aware of it, they're not exactly going to recommend stopping smoking when they're smoking. And analogous to the situation now, where there's lots of evidence out there published saying that plant-based nutrition can cure most of the common medical illnesses, and yet most doctors don't know about it. And if they have heard something about it, your natural tendency is to sort of poo-poo something that you're doing yourself, and things like people like what they eat. I mean, people like their cheese and their meat and their hamburger and their et cetera. And I'm the first to admit that, like I said before, changing a habit like what you eat is very problematic. So I still don't think that excuses doctors from not being aware of all the studies out there showing that they could cure their patients without medications simply by getting them on a proper diet.
Right. Well, that's why it's so great to hear that Dr. Barnard is going to be doing grand rounds and meeting with medical students. That maybe this upcoming generation is less set in their ways, is more open to evidence, is more concerned about the environment, and we'll start to see the tipping point the way we did with smoking in the sort of 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right. I can only hope so. I have two children. One just turned 30, my son, and my daughter's about to turn 33. And this world is not headed in a great direction right now in a lot of ways. But I also have high hopes for the coming generation. So.
Right. Very good. Well, Dr. Jonathan Sheline, thank you for all you do. Thanks for being one of the community leaders for the PCRM efforts in Durham, North Carolina. And thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Well, you're welcome, Howard. Thanks a lot. Enjoyed talking with you. Take care.
You too. And last but not least, the eminent Parul Karod. Parul is a dietitian, and not only is she heavily involved in the plant-based community, but she's also firmly embedded in Wake Med, in a traditional standard medical system, and the way that she navigates both of those worlds, bringing our work into theirs and fostering conversation and curiosity and helping people get better who don't necessarily listen to the Plant Yourself podcast or read books by Esselstyn, McDougall, Campbell, Barnard, Davis, etc., is really wonderful missionary work. So let's hear from her. Hey, Parul, thanks for taking the time. I'd love to introduce you to the podcast listeners and have you talk a little bit about what you'll be up to for the PCRM Health Fest in Durham. First of all, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thank you, Howard. Thank you for inviting me to the podcast. My name is Parul Karod. I am a registered dietitian and licensed nutritionist. As far as my education, I have a master's degree in dietetics and an undergrad in food and nutrition. I work at Wake Med Hospital as their outpatient, in the outpatient nutrition services as a dietitian. So what I do is a lot of individual nutrition counseling for basically everything under the sun, I would say, all kinds of medical issues as far as weight management, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease. I also specialize in food allergies. So I see a lot of kids as well as adults with either one or multiple food allergies. I also do a lot of diet counseling for autoimmune diseases like celiac, Hashimoto's, and all of that spectrum. I teach diabetes classes, and then I am also part of the hospital's kidney stone clinic. So we work with dietary changes to help people prevent kidney stones. So a lot of different issues, health issues as far as nutrition is concerned. And so that's what I do basically on a day-to-day basis.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, you're working at Wake Med in a very mainstream institution. How do you manage to navigate, your perspective, your plant-based, evidence-based outlook with what I imagine isn't always a community totally embracing that?
Right. So, I mean, I have a spectrum of patients. Not all of them are 100% aboard with the plant-based diet. However, I always, sort of meet them where they are and then slowly sort of gear them towards explaining why plant-based foods are important for health. One of the things that has recently helped is all this information about probiotics, like the whole gut microbiome and why probiotics are important, and that has sort of helped that has sort of helped guide the conversation in the sense that I always tell them that, we need a lot of prebiotic and probiotic bacteria in our gut to stay healthy as far as mind and body health. And the only foods that have fiber that help with the probiotic bacteria is all plants. All plants have fiber. Animal foods don't have fiber. So that's a clear-cut distinction. So that's where I always start usually and tell people that we need a lot of fiber, and that's where we have plants. And then we start talking about other benefits of the plant. So not necessarily, depends on the person. I don't always use the word vegan or vegetarian, but sort of guide them as to this is your portion plate, this is what you need, and always focusing on the plant foods, that this is what you need, the whole grains, the beans, the nuts, the fruits and vegetables. And then depending on how willing they are, either to cut out meat completely or at least reduce it to whichever level, So, I mean, I can push as much as I can. But talking about the benefits of because there are a lot of people who don't eat any plant foods at all.
Right.
So at least if they can add those, then that's a plus.
Yeah. So
then you go from there.
Do they ever come back to you and say, "But my doctor said I need, lean protein," or my surgeon is not doing keto? Like, do you get pushback from within WakeMed?
Yeah, a lot of time. Not within WakeMed. I mean, I see a lot of people who are referred from outside practices as well. So I don't see just WakeMed patients. I see a lot of patients who are referred to me from other practices, like other primary care practices or other cardiology practices or other gastroenterology practices. So it's not just WakeMed referrals. But yeah, I mean, a lot of, unfortunately, and as you know, we have heard Dr. Barnard and other physicians themselves admit that doctors themselves don't get the best nutrition education. And so a lot of patients will come saying that, yeah, my doctor told me to eat low carb. Anytime, I mean, this is true with mostly all diabetes patients. For diabetes, mostly all, patients will come saying that they were advised to do a low carb diet or a keto diet or a high protein diet. And so I have to sort of guide the conversation from there that, yeah, those are fad diets. They don't always work. And we also want to look at one thing that always resonates with people is that I just start out by saying that I don't believe in diets and that you don't need to count calories. And so that all the time. So that always helps. And then talking to each person that, each person is unique. Two people having the same chronic diseases like diabetes, for example, may not always need the same nutrients in their body, so because one person might have high cholesterol, the other person might have an autoimmune disease. So a person has to look at everything that's on their medical history and gear the diet towards that, because like, for example, if somebody is doing a low carb diet just to lose weight, but then that makes their cholesterol go up, then what's the point, right? So that always resonates well with people that, yes, you are looking at their overall total long-term health. And what will help with long-term health with every chronic disease is a well-balanced plant-based diet. So that always helps, sort of guide the conversation.
Great. So, tell us about the PCRM Health Test. What are you going to be doing, and what are you looking forward to in terms of its potential impact on the community?
Yeah, so we at the Health Fest, we each have our own, sort of tables. So just telling people what we do, and hopefully, if somebody wants to eat a plant-based diet, but they don't know how to or what to, then our hope is that they will come back to us and we can guide them in the right direction. And then I believe there is also sort of like a panel discussion, so I'm going to be part of that. So my hope is just that with the PCRM events, that people become more aware of the broad reach of the benefits of the plant-based diet, that it's not just a, it's not just a fad. It's not just some, weird hippie thing that people do. It's more like it has a proven benefits, and we have numerous research studies to show that there are benefits to not just one aspect of health, but like I was saying earlier, like overall long-term health. It can help with weight, with heart disease, with diabetes, and preventing and treating a number of different medical issues. So my hope is that the community can come out and sort of learn a little bit more about the benefits, and so we can expand this knowledge to help as many people as we can.
Yeah. Do you find that the people that you counsel who become more plant-based spread it to their families? Maybe that. Yes,
definitely they do. And one of the biggest impacts I have seen is with, like I was saying, our kidney stone clinic. So kidney stones, one of the major risk factors for kidney stones is the consumption of animal protein. So that, and we have literally seen results that as people have started cutting back on their animal foods, they are not having stones anymore. We have seen people drop their cholesterol, people drop their blood pressure, their blood sugars coming back down to normal. I had one person who had multiple digestive issues, and IBS, and more chronic, those kinds of conditions. But he wanted to build muscle, so he was working out and he was doing a lot of protein shakes. And when we changed the diet to sort of like a more plant-based, easy digest foods, all of his numbers came back down to normal, including like elevated uric acid and elevated liver function enzymes, and all of that just dropped back down to normal. So we have seen clear results with that when we do change, and I mean when people do adhere to the changes that we recommend, they have clearly seen results. Yeah.
Great. So I guess some of your clients and patients may be dragging their families to the event.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. So the patients that I see, I mean, they already know. I'm hoping that more other people, like who are not aboard, sort of get more educated about this subject. So.
Right. So the people would say, yeah, I don't really understand the science. I'm just doing what they told me and I'm feeling better. But you know what? There's this couple of days, and like, if you're interested, come on out. It'll taste good. It'll be fun, and you'll learn.
Sure. Definitely.
Great. So if people want, do you have a blog or a website or a presence if people want to find you outside of WakeMed?
I don't have a blog. I do write for our hospital blog. So our hospital blog is called wakemedvoices.org, and people can go on that blog. I have my articles there. I do write regularly for another, like a regional South Asian magazine, and that caters mostly to the South Asian population in the and that magazine goes out to, I believe, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So those are the 3 states it covers. But it's called Saathee, SAATHEE, Saathee.com. If you go to their website, my column, it's called Nutrition for Life. And so it's a monthly magazine. So the magazine is free. It's published once a month, but all of the articles are on the website in a blog form, so you can find my articles there.
Great. So I'll include a link to the show notes.
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
And you can include my information in case somebody wants to come see me as like my referral numbers. I can send those to you.
Great. Yeah. Email me those and I'll put them up on the site. Great. So I see the.
Sure.
Your last WakeMed blog was preventing GI issues with diet, and Saathee magazine, you have something on functional foods, and it's all in English, so all of us can.
Yes, it's all. It's all in English.
Good. So I don't have to learn Gujarati in order to get the benefit of your wisdom. That's a relief. It's a busy week, so.
Yes.
All right, Parul, thank you so much for all you do and for taking the time today and for being part of the PCRM effort to bring health and sanity to the Triangle of North Carolina. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Plant Yourself podcast. I hope you enjoyed meeting these 4 figures in the community. There's one person I couldn't arrange a call with in time. It's Nadine Blake, who is a food services manager at one of the local public schools. And that would have been a really interesting story. But she'll be there as well, talking about how she brings healthy food to the school children in Durham, North Carolina. So if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support our mission, you can subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. And if you'd like to, again, to find out about becoming a WellStart Health Coach, just go to wellstartcoach.com, and you have a few days to do that and schedule an enrollment interview. If you're interested in finding out more about becoming a participant in an upcoming WellStart cohort, a 12-week on-ramp to health, or as Josh and I have been talking about, if you're interested into NASCAR or boating, the 12-week whole shot. That's HOLESHOT. I'd love to know if you know that phrase, because I'd love to use that in our marketing, but I just have no idea if that's too weird or a turnoff. But you can look up whole shot on Google and let me know what you think. Just go to wellstarthealth.com. You can read about it. We usually have cohorts starting every 6 weeks, every 2 months or so at this point. So we just started one, so you might have a little bit of a wait, but get on the list. We'll send you some good stuff in the meantime. And of course, there's always the podcast. This was episode number 293. You can check out the show notes there. And if you're new to the show, you can check out 292 archived episodes over at plantyourself.com. Okay, so what's going on now? Regarding news, we've been away for 10 days. I have no idea. Looking forward to getting home, to seeing if the kale has managed to keep growing and avoid rodents and pestilence and pest and all that. And in running news, I did a nice slow 5K. It was fun to kind of get back. I was running with a whole bunch of people who've been on the podcast. I followed Josh Lajani for about 100 meters before he took off without me. I saw Darren Morton ablaze in the distance ahead of me. And then I ran with Dr. Veggie, Ted Barnett, for a bit. And I finished with David Donahue. We were sort of helping each other across the last half mile. And I finished at a 7:30 pace, roughly. It was a 3.55 mile 5K. So that was about almost a half a mile longer than should have been. But we all survived. We all had a good time. Thanks. Thanks, of course, to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use Sabali Dawn, the Dance of Peace, as the theme music for this show. And thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons, as in Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Mara, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hadley, Mary Jean Wheeler, Ellen Kennedy, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Barons, Christine Nielsen, Tina Sharp, Tina Ahern, Jen Filkanovsky, David Weizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elspeth Feldman, Victoria Dolomanova, Leah Storlo, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Andrews, Josina, Julianne Rollins, Stu Dolnick, Sarah Durkis, Runs the Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Pedersen, Leanne Peterson, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Bedden, Gil Lacerte, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carol Argentati, Jody Friesner, Ruth Ann Funderburg, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, Equally Mysterious Tracy Z. Alicia Lemus, Rebecca Hughes, Val Linneman, Rhymes with Cinnamon, Nick Harper, Stephanie Holmuth, Martha Bergner, Nicole Ramsey, Susan Ahmad, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable, Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Sharp, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Ashley Corcoran, Kelly Machia, Deanne Norton, Bonnie Lynch, Plant Happy Oregon, Sabina Kurtzels, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Copel, Cheryl Rutledge, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Brian Sheridan, Shannon Hirschman, Kate Roseland, Dayat, Julie Langholm, Hedda Gardiza, Tuzan Wak, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Aviva Lell, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Cherry Olakowski, Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen Joe Crabtree, Tanya Lewis, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Kelly Baker, Miracle, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Jan Valerie Peltier, Peter W. Evans, Colleen Harrison, Justine Divot, Joshua Sommermeyer, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Lori Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Valerie Hummel, Deb Casilla, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leenan, Party DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, and Deanne Bishop for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for this week. As always, be well, my friends. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song, Sabali Dawn, the Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Mara, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hadley, Mary Jean Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Barons, Christine Nielsen, Tina Sharp, Tina Ahern, Jen Filkanovsky, David Weizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elspeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Andrews, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Rhymes with Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Pedersen, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Benham, Gil Lacerte, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carol Argentati, Jody Friesner, Ruth Ann Funderburg, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, The Equally Mysterious Tracy Z, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Rebecca Hughes, Val Linneman, Rhymes with Cinnamon, Nick Harper, Martha Bergner, Susan Ahmad, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable, Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Sharp, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Kelly Machia, Deanne Norton, Bonnie Lynch, Plant Happy Oregon, Sabina Kurtzels, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Copel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Shannon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Colm Hedegard, Isa Tuzawak, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Orlikowski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Tanya Lewis, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Valerie Peltier, Peter W. Evans, Colleen Harrison, Justine Divitt, Joshua Summermeyer, Dennis Bird, Darmy Kelly, Laurie Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Valerie Hummel, Emily Iaconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan McCorney, Stephen Lehman, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Karts, Deanne Bishop, Bill Brielf, Gunter Schmidt, Marjorie Lewis, Kelly Molden, Tricia Adams, Ian Kramer, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunn-Marie Hagan, Tracy Gullish, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Rochelle Kennedy, Diana Goldman, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, Holly Butler, Diana, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Param Ganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Olga Sidorowska, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Nayak, Erica Piedra, and Danielle Roberts for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for today. As always, be well, my friends.